Welcome back. Welcome back to Learn with me, Miss Killen, here at MPB. We're still in Unit 2. We are looking at Lesson 5 today, which is solving literal equations. We're looking at A-REI.3 and A-CED4. I can rearrange equations to literally solve for a variable. Now, before we jump into this, you may be sitting there thinking, what is a literal equation? When we solve something literally, it is exactly what it equals. Now, we may have to solve for a variable when we don't know what the answer is. It's just more unknowns. So as we get into this, I don't want you to think, well, we didn't solve it, we just got it by itself. When we are solving these literal equations, sometimes we're going to have more unknowns in the answer. So I want you to keep that in mind. So here we go. Here's some vocabulary that we need to look at, that we need to be putting on our vocabularies pages. Literal equations, an equation that contains two or more variables, unlike traditional equations where you often solve for one variable in terms of numbers, literal equations, you solve for one variable in terms of other variables. Now, when I'm talking about traditional equations, y equals 3 plus 4, we know 3 plus 4 is 7, so y would equal 7. So we solve this in terms of y for the numbers. So I have y in terms of the numbers. So when we're looking at literal equations, we're maybe going to have more variables that we're looking for equals. So let's look. So it says solve for literal equations. So I have a equals 1/2 b times h, and I'm solving for h. Now, what I'm doing is I am getting h by itself and everything else on the other side of the equal sign. Now, I'm not going to be able to give you an exact h equals 2, but I can tell you literally what h equals. So watch me as I work this. So we are solving for h. Everything on the right side of this equation is being multiplied. So for me to get h by itself, I'm going to have to divide. So first, I'm going to move my fraction. When I divide by a fraction, it's just like multiplying by the reciprocal. All right, and that is dividing by a fraction. That's something that we definitely need to put in our notes page. So it's like multiplying by the reciprocal. So I'm going to multiply here, and that would be 2 over 2, so that's 1. It's canceled out. So I'm also going to multiply over here, so I have 2a equals b times h. Now, I still need to solve for that h, so I need to move the b. Since I'm multiplying b and h, I'm going to divide by my b. So my h literally equals 2a divided by b. It's all in the way that you think about this. Literally, h is by itself, and literally h equals 2a divided by b. Now, until I find out what the a is, until I find out what the b equals, I can't tell you exactly what h's number is, but I can tell you literally what h equals. Let's look at the next one. V equals pi squared times h. So I'm going to work this up here on the board, and let's see what we got. So I know that pi squared times h equals v. I'm getting h by itself, so I am going to divide. I'm going to divide by pi squared. Wait a minute, Ms. Killen. You're telling me that we can divide by pi squared with an exponent? Yes, because anything over itself equals what? It equals 1. So these two cancel out right there. It's just a 1. So let's continue. Since I divided by pi squared on one side, I'm going to divide by pi squared on the other. So my h literally equals v divided by pi squared. Now, as we have learned about our exponents, we would go into getting our exponent out of the denominator and doing this and that. But for this intents and purposes, I just wanted you to see literally what my h equaled. All right, so here we go. Remember the formula of a perimeter of a rectangle. Okay, we have our length and our width. 2 length plus 2 width equals my perimeter. So I am solving for my width. It tells me right here I'm solving for my width. So that means I've got to move everything else on the other side. So watch how I do this. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to notate what I'm solving for. All right, so the next thing I'm going to do is move everything else away from that W. So since 2L is positive, I'm going to subtract 2L on both sides. So I have P minus 2L equals 2W. Now, still needing to get that width by itself, so I'm going to divide by 2 on both sides. So my width literally is P minus 2L over 2. Literal equations. I'm just rearranging formulas. That's all I'm doing is just rearranging formulas. Good job. Let's do some more. It says solve each equation for m. I have 3m plus 5 equals 16. 4m minus n equals p. Do this on your paper as I do it on the board, and let's see what we got. So you work and I'm going to work. Here we go. I'm going to do opposite operation to get m by itself. So I'm going to subtract 5 on both sides. I have 3m equals 11. I'm going to divide by my 3. M literally equals 11 over 3. What did you get? Look at your paper or look and see what you and your table partner did. Did you get m equals 11 over 3? Good job. Let's do the next one. Here we go. 4m minus n equals p. So what I'm going to do is I am solving for m. I'm just going to put a little bit of notation so I know what I'm looking for. And I'm going to do opposite operations. So I'm adding n to both sides. So 4m equals p plus n. Get that m by itself. I am going to divide by my 4 on both sides. So m equals p plus n divided by 4. I literally found out what m equals in both of these. In the top, it equaled a number or a fraction. In the bottom, it had kind of like a formula. So even though I got m by itself, sometimes I'm going to know exactly what it is, and sometimes it's going to be a literal equation. So let's look at some more of these. Let's do some practice. It says, in the following equation, f equals 9 over 5c plus 32. Solve for c. So as I do on the board, I want you to do it on your paper, and let's get a good understanding on how to solve for these different variables. So here we go. I'm solving for c. I'm going to use my opposite operation and subtract 32 on both sides. So I have 9 over 5c equals f minus 32. Now, I have to get that 9/5 on the other side, so I'm going to divide by a fraction, which I know is just like multiplying by its reciprocal. So I'm going to multiply by the reciprocal, and then I'm going to multiply by the reciprocal. So my c equals 5/9 times f minus 32. Now, if you want to go ahead and distribute that 5/9 into the parentheses, that's perfectly fine. But I know literally what c equals. 5/9 times f minus 32. Let's look at the next one. Use the following equation. mt minus hx plus j equals r, and I'm solving for my x. So let's go ahead and try this one together. I'm going to do it on the board. You do it on your paper. Here we go. So I'm going to rewrite it. mt minus hx plus j equals r. I'm solving for my x. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to move my j. So I'm going to subtract j on both sides. mt minus hx equals r minus j. Now, I need to move that mt away from my x side of my equation. So since it's positive, I'm going to subtract it again. I'm subtracting on the right as well. So I have negative hx equals r minus j minus mt. Now, I want everybody to look what we've got. Still don't have that x by itself, but I want us to look at something. My h is negative. I have got to divide by that negative. You cannot leave the negative there because it will not be by itself. If I leave that negative on the left side, I'm still going to have to get that x by itself. When I say by itself, I mean by itself. It can't have a negative number, it can't have a negative sign, it can't have anything but the variable I'm looking for. So let's go ahead and get that x by itself. I'm going to go ahead and divide by the negative h everywhere. So x equals. Now, I see what I have here on the right, but then I have to remember, when I divide, a negative divided by a negative is it's a positive. So I can go ahead and show that in my answer. So I have r, negative and negative is a positive, negative and negative is a positive, negative and negative is a positive. So x equals r plus j plus mt divided by h. Remembering that negative divided by negative is a positive. We always want to make sure that we remember those past rules while we're doing these. All right, so let's look at some more. It also tells me negative divided by negative is positive, so we don't want to forget that. What would we do if our variable is in our numerator? Solve for a. So I have y plus a divided by 2d equals m. So I'm solving for a. So let's go ahead and do this. Now I've got to get my denominator out of the way. So when I have the denominator, what is my denominator doing? It's being divided. So for me to move it, I'm going to have to multiply it. You're right. So I'm going to multiply it here. Those two will cancel out. And I'm also going to multiply it here. So I have y plus a equals what? 2dm. Still need to get that a by itself. Y is positive, so I'm going to subtract y on both sides. A equals 2dm minus y. Now I know you're sitting there saying, Ms. Killen, you multiplied by the 2d, but then you put the 2d in front. That's a good question. 9 times out of 10, well, mostly 10 times out of 10, your number comes before your variables. So I went ahead and showed that. And then when I put my variables, I always put my variables in alphabetical order. D comes before M. So 2dm. That's why I'm doing different things, because I'm taking those past rules that we've learned in our middle school and our elementary, and I have to apply those rules that we've learned into this Algebra 1. So that was a good catch. All right? Time for you to master. Now, I am taking 4 of my formulas, and I am solving for specific variables in all 4 of these formulas. So I want either you or you and your table partner, I want you to work these 4 formulas, come back to me, and then we can compare answers. All right, let's see. I'm going to work it. You check my work from your paper that you or you and your partner did, and let's see what we got. All right, so I'm solving for r. So the first thing I know is p, r, and t are being multiplied together to equal I. So if they're being multiplied, I do opposite operation, and I'm going to divide by my p and t on both sides of my equal sign. So I divided by pt equals my r. Simple, simple. All I'm having to do is do opposite operation and get the indicated variable by itself. Let's do the next one. I am solving for m. So the first thing I'm going to move is what is not beside what I'm solving for. So since I'm adding my b, I'm going to subtract it on both sides. So y minus b equals mx. Solving for that m, since m and x are being multiplied, I'm going to divide it on both sides. So m equals y minus b divided by x. Notice that I am using these opposite operations. You cannot forget that. It is crucial. Whatever you're doing, I do the opposite to get it on the other side. Let's try number 3. I'm solving for r. So since r and t are being multiplied, I'm going to divide. So r equals d over t. And then my last one, I'm solving for m. Now, m is being multiplied to parentheses x minus x1. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to divide by the whole parentheses on both sides. So watch what I do. I'm going to divide the whole parentheses. So my m equals y minus y1 over x minus x1. I can take multiple variables and multiply or divide them, add or subtract them, depending on what's being done with them, to get a specific variable by itself. You always want to make sure that you're looking to see what's happening to know what you're going to have to do. Good job. So I want us to remember what literal equations are. I'm getting a variable by itself, but in terms of other variables. So when I get, let's say, my r by itself, it may equal several other unknowns. Because I don't know what those unknowns are, I'm just saying it literally equals this, this, and this. All right? We need to know the difference between literal and traditional equations. Traditional equations, y plus 2 equals 3. Okay? So I know I'm getting an exact number for that y. When I'm looking at those literal equations, I may have unknowns and multiple unknowns in what my variable equals. So we need to make sure that we're understanding what the literal and the traditional one is. I'm having a hard time saying that word. I'm so glad that you're learning here with me at MPB. I'm having a great time doing these equations. We're almost at the end of Unit 2, so I want you to come back and learn some more with me. Have a great day.